I was initially unsure how many books I wanted to do for this first chapter challenge, so I was like, why don't I just do my age? 21. I have what I consider potentially my top 21 books on my TBR. I can't say that these are definitely the top 21 that I want to read, but I did go through my bookshelves and I was like, you know what? I want to read you now, and I want to read you now, and I kind of want to read you now. So that's what I did. I was inspired by my friend Kayla from Books and Lala for this video, so I will link Kayla's video down below. This is the cheap Poundland version of her video. So the 21 books that I picked for this first chapter challenge are Where Sleeping Girls Lie by Frida aka Amity, The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden, Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield, You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kaelin Bayron, Ascension by Nicholas Binge, Till Death Do Us Barred by Rose Black, The List of Suspicious Things by Jenny Godfrey, All Hallows by Christopher Golden, The Book of the Most Precious Substance by Sarah Gran, The Hurricane Wars by Thea Guanzon, Palace of the Peacock by Wilson Harris, A Fate Inked to Blood by Danielle L. Jensen, Godkiller by Hannah Kana, Salem Slot by Stephen King, Forged by Blood by Ihigbo Okosan, Last to Leave the Room by Caitlin Starling, Butch from Blackbird by Bryn Weaver, Good Girl Banana by Wiz Wharton, Voyage of the Damned by Frances White, Heaven Official's Blessing, and Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, both by Mo Zing Tongzu. I actually don't know how many pages that totals, but I will have it on the screen somewhere. But I did have a little bit of a flick through, and most of these are between like 4 and 20 pages long, so it shouldn't take too long. But I kind of want to see what I would bump up my TBR priority list. I don't think I'll be rating them out of 10 like what Kayla did. I will just have a ranking probably at the end of this, maybe, I don't know. I feel like it'll be so hard to do with just one chapter. If you end up enjoying this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's get into the first chapter challenge. Oh my god, it's on its way! I ordered food because my air fryer broke. At least that's my excuse. I do have a perfectly good oven. However, I did read the first chapter of this, although it was more kind of like a 2-page prologue, essentially. There was a 2-page author's note before this, which was amazing as well. Honestly, I feel like anything Farida writes is incredible. I loved Ace of Spades when I read it a few years back, and I have been highly anticipating Farida's second book, and here it is. I'm so excited. This sounds like amazing as well, and the first chapter, even though it's only like really technically 2 pages, hooked me. Have you ever seen those like really, not exactly old, because I don't want to say that I'm old, but you know, like say Pretty Little Liars, the pilot of Pretty Little Liars, or I guess like any teen drama really, where it starts with like a really intense kind of scene, and then it goes back in time, and then you have to like kind of work your way up to that scene. Well, it seems like before chapter 1, it goes back 5 weeks. So I love the fact that the first chapter is actually called -1 Go Fish. And oh my gosh, I really want to know what happens, because yeah, because it was like so intense. We have a character called Shade, and I'm so glad that I know how to pronounce that because I did mention this in my book haul. And a huge thank you to this comment for letting me know how to pronounce Shade's name. The intrigue. This story is about Shade, who goes to this new academy, and on her first night, her roommate disappears. And Shade also meets the Unholy Trinity, who I think are the popular girls of the school. And the -1 chapter is essentially Shade. It looks like they've gone through hell and they're crying, and then somebody comes up to Shade and says, oh, what's up, what's happened? And Shade ends the -1 chapter with, he's dead. And I'm like, who's dead? So honestly, my intrigue on this is so freaking high. This is definitely getting read in April. I'm putting this right at the top of my fucking TBR. Two books in, I already want a nap. The first chapter of The Warm Hands of Ghosts, I don't know why, but I keep struggling with that title, The Warm Hands of Ghosts. It was a fine first chapter. It really didn't blow me away. The premise of this story is that we follow Laura. It's set in January 1918. It's during the First World War, and her brother is fighting in the war, but he hasn't responded to her in a couple of months. And according to the synopsis, her brother Freddie ended up in the no man's land and comes across someone called the Fiddler. And this fiddler seems to have the power to make the hellscape that surrounds them disappear, but at what cost? So we follow Laura a couple of months later. She's headed to the Forbidden Zone in Belgium, and she's now working as a nurse in order to try and find him. I do like myself a good historical every now and then. I haven't read one in a while though, and I am still intrigued to read this. I think the premise is very exciting, but just like based off the first chapter, I can kind of tell the author is like really trying to force an old school kind of dialogue, just like with the amount of times people are like, oh, quiet, and like, thanks awfully, in so many words like that. I know they spoke like that back then, I know, but for some reason it just doesn't feel like it rolls off the tongue naturally to these characters. I can't explain it. It just seems a little bit forced with the dialogue, but again, it's only the first chapter. I will continue on at some point, but it just didn't come naturally, I think. I feel like it was a little bit of a rough first chapter a little bit. Nothing about the premise happened in the first chapter. It really was just Laura talking to a boy and telling him about a purple horse and like witches and like fairy tales and stuff, which was like fine. And then she goes to what used to be her house that I think had been bombed, and she has like a little bit of a memory, but that's about it. She's received a box and I'm a little bit intrigued by that, but it didn't really intrigue me as much as Where Sleeping Girls Lie, you know, like that one is still number 1. So this is the ranking so far. The Warm Hands of Ghosts is currently number 2.
How did you do? What did you read? Tell me everything.
Currently watching Kayla's Members Reading Sprints, and I read the first chapter of Our Wives Under the Sea. It's so weird. Honestly, if I didn't read the synopsis of this book, the first chapter wouldn't really have told me anything. Like, it's just so weird and vague. So from the synopsis, I gather that we follow Miri. Leia did some kind of mission out in the sea. Like, she was in a vessel, she came back home, and she came back different. So she's saying these like really vague and cryptic things, and she has been saying these things in the first chapter, and it is a bit weird. And she like randomly bleeds as well. And I'm just a bit perplexed because like I am so intrigued, don't get me wrong, I'm intrigued. But like, what? And it did look like the second chapter is Leia, so we might actually see both sides of this. Miri and Leia are wife and wife, and I love that. I didn't get that from the first chapter. Yeah, the first chapter did not give me a whole lot to go off of, but I like the writing style. It's very cryptic, very vague. I will currently put it second on my intrigue ranking. Where Sleeping Girls Lie just came out swinging, you know what I mean? It's probably going to be a hard one to top, just like me. This is the worst angle imaginable, but that's fine. If you hear Ash purring through this update, that's also fine. I finished the first chapter of You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight, and it was fine. It was good. It started off pretty exciting because this is set at Camp Mirror Lake, where this where the staff there pretty much play this like horror game with the guests. So the guests are like paying for a horror movie kind of experience where they're playing roles. So there's like a serial killer, there's a final girl. Charity, our main character, is the final girl, or she was for the very first game. So it starts off pretty exciting because it's like this whole game thing. Although it starts like right in the action, so you weren't really sure whether it was a game or not. But because I knew what this was about, I thought, okay, this is like fake, obviously. But it was still good. The game ends, people check out. Kind of reminds me of, you know, those really extreme haunted houses that people do at Halloween, especially in America. And I remember there was a YouTube video that I watched of a guy in America who did this whole extreme haunted house thing, and he got his like whole family involved and stuff, but it got like a little bit out of hand. I think the guy started cheating on his wife or something, or like found a younger girlfriend. I have no idea what that was anymore because I think it was about a year or two since I watched that YouTube video. But people do go all out for like haunted houses and stuff, but this is a camp, so that's pretty original. I'm like, would a camp, like a horror movie camp where you're being chased and stuff and you have to like check out at 1 a.m. and all of that, like would that actually work in real life? I don't know. I think a haunted house experience, absolutely, but a camp maybe in the middle of nowhere where you have to check out at 1 a.m. I don't know if that's like very believable, but it's fine because I'm suspending my disbelief. Writing is fine. I like the voice of the main character. I'm not a big fan of the fact that we got a little bit of backstory in the very first chapter. I feel like in an effort to make us care about the family situation the main character is in, and like I say this about a lot of books, but I don't really love it when we're told a backstory a little bit too early, because it's like you're trying to, and I'm not saying that this is what the author's doing, but like trying to like emotionally manipulate me into caring for the main character a bit too early on, you know what I mean? Maybe a few chapters in, I would probably care more, but it's because I'm meeting this character for the first time. Can you imagine meeting someone for the very first time and them telling you their backstory like straight away? It's like, whoa, hang on, let me get to know you first. But so far so good. Charity seems pretty good. I also love this edition. I'm so sorry, like the lighting's so bad, but it's just mood lighting, okay? Based on intrigue though, You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight is probably third so far out of 4. This is going straight on the top of my intrigue pile. I freaking love that first chapter. Oh my god. The intrigue is sky high. So the first chapter is actually a forward. Like, it is part of the story, so don't skip it. It is kind of the introduction to the story. And like, it was so intriguing. So the forward follows Ben, and he talks about his brother, Harry. Harry is a bit of an explorer, and in the winter of 1990, Ben says like that's the last time he ever saw his brother. After the winter of 1990, they had to declare him missing, and then in the fall of 1998, they had to declare him dead. 30 years later, Ben gets a call from his friend saying he saw his brother in a mental health facility. And this is like, what? He's been missing for like 30 years, what are you talking about? So he ends up going to this mental health facility where he talks to his brother, and his brother has been diagnosed with, what was it called again? Paranoid delusional disorders. He often becomes restless and at times violent. And so Ben spends some time with his brother, and his brother is talking about these weird random things that don't seem to make a whole lot of sense. And then let's just say something happens to Harry. Ben ends up getting the letters, like there's some like letters from 1991 to do with what happened back then. So it does seem like the rest of the book is told in a sort of letter format. And the synopsis of this book tells us that we are following Harry in 1991 when this really weird mountain comes out of the Pacific Ocean. It just randomly and mysteriously appears. And so a group of scientists, including Harry, go to investigate this mountain, and the further up this mountain they go, the more strange it becomes. So something must happen to Harry on this mountain to lead to 30 years later being in this mental health facility and this encounter with his brother, leading to what happens in that forward chapter. And I'm just like, this was so intriguing. Like, oh my gosh. Is it like science fiction horror or something? Tate Thompson apparently says both the science and the suspense are perfection, all held together by a robust emotional core. So like, I can't even remember how I got this. Was this the broken binding or something? I'm seriously going to put that on top of the intrigue pile, because I'm now so excited to find out what the hell happened to Harry on this really mysterious mountain that appeared in the middle of the ocean. Like, what? If you kind of want a medieval gay romance that's a little bit Legends and Lattes, but with more of a plot, I feel like this is the one. I read the first chapter and it is good. It is a good first chapter. We follow Logan, who is a sort of like a fighter, sort of knight, warrior in this medieval setting. And he is married to a bard called Pie. And they are husbands. It's very cute. I will say, it's a little bit basic. Like, the romances, I mean, again, this is just based off the first chapter. Things like, we've been married for 6 months, but every single time I look at him, I fall in love all over again. And I love you forever, more than forever. Do you know, maybe I'm just a cynic. Maybe I just don't like love. I don't know, like really basic level romance stuff. And so it seems like there's something wrong with Pie. Pie won't tell Logan, his husband, about what's on his mind. And it seems like something's happened. And during a set where the bard is like singing at this bar, Logan starts to feel tired after having a drink, and so Pie takes him up to bed. And then when Logan wakes up the next morning, Pie is gone. And so the plot of this, which is explained in the synopsis, is that I think Pie was kidnapped. Logan discovers that Pie had been blackmailed into stealing a powerful artifact capable of creating an undead army. And it does sound really exciting. Like, I am looking forward to reading more of it. I do think it's going to be cute, and I think it's going to have a more plot-heavy kind of story than Legends and Lattes. But it has that kind of vibe-ish. I think at the minute I will put it fourth on my ranking. This is one of my most recent additions to my book collection. This is set in the 1970s in Yorkshire, while the Yorkshire Ripper is at large. I kind of love the fact that the author, Jenny Godfrey, it says that this novel is inspired by her childhood in the 1970s. And from the first chapter alone, I can really feel it. Like, it feels real. It almost feels like it isn't fiction. And I feel like the first chapter is probably like so autobiographical in a way, because the main character is called Miv, and she's still a schoolgirl, but it's while the Yorkshire Ripper is murdering a lot of women in the area, in the kind of public panic that ensued after that. Margaret Thatcher is also the Prime Minister too, and there are so many things to do with life under Margaret Thatcher's kind of thumb. And honestly, I can feel it. Like, I can really feel it. I love the sort of references to things like the Wombles and like the Carpenters, the Beatles. It feels so real. And the story does take a turn. Not in the first chapter, but just from the synopsis. It's talking about how Miv and her best friend, Sharon, decide to make a list of all the suspicious people that they know in their area who could probably be the Yorkshire Ripper. But it says their search for the truth reveals more secrets in their neighbourhood, within their families, and between each other that they never thought possible. So I feel like this probably goes beyond the Yorkshire Ripper case, and it's kind of using the Yorkshire Ripper murders and Margaret Thatcher as a sort of backdrop to the kind of story that Jenny Godfrey wants to tell with this book. But the first chapter was very heavily involved with life in the 1970s. I think 1979 this is actually set, in hearing about the murders on the television, about the way that the media would treat the women who were murdered by the Yorkshire Ripper. I watched a documentary with my patrons, I think last year or the year before, that was about the Yorkshire Ripper, and the way that the media vilified the women victims, because the first few victims were prostitutes. And then it wasn't until a girl got murdered who wasn't a prostitute that the media were like, oh, she was innocent and she shouldn't be killed and stuff like that. Like, really awful stuff. It's like, well, obviously the first female victims of the Yorkshire Ripper didn't deserve to die either. You know what I mean? But because they had a particular lifestyle, the media vilified them. So you get like a sprinkling of that from the media, but also Auntie Jean, who is Miv's aunt, and she is talking about like Margaret Thatcher, she's talking about the Yorkshire Ripper victims, and you know, it just feels real at the minute. Like, it honestly feels like a biography. And yeah, it does say in the author's note, which is actually really insane. One of my most vivid early memories is of the day that he was captured, when it became clear my dad knew him. I can still feel the shock of how close he got to my family. So like, the author actually has some kind of connection to the Yorkshire Ripper like murder case. But this is fiction. It's not true crime or anything. It's not non-fiction. I also love the fact that Jenny is actually a part-time Waterstones bookseller. I used to work at Waterstones, and I love the fact that Jenny, I mean, I don't know if she still works there or not, but that's awesome. I love supporting Waterstones booksellers who take the leap into publishing. So honestly, I found this like so intriguing. The end of the first chapter is Miv saying, oh, imagine if we could catch him, because they're talking about moving her away, and she doesn't want to move away because of her best friend Sharon. What if someone caught him, I wondered? What if the murders were to stop and we could stay? Then I would never have to leave Sharon and we could be best friends always. So yeah, it does seem like Miv is potentially going to try and take matters into her own hands. As said from the synopsis, she's going to make a list of suspicious people, and we'll see what happens after that. Really enjoyed it. Very good. You're currently on my book stack right now, so I'm like trying to pick where I would put it in my kind of list. I think I know where. I think this is currently second on my ranking. The first chapter of this was very subtle, as in not really a whole lot happens, but there was like a sort of little thing, like a cheeky little sinister thing. I mean, I say sinister. I had to look up what it was, and then as soon as I saw it, I was like, ah, okay. It is Halloween night, and there is a guy called Tony Barbosa, and he's doing the Haunted Woods for the final time. In the Haunted Woods, he's setting it up. It's kind of like a haunted house situation, but in the woods. And so him and his daughter are like setting it up, and then his daughter gets something. He's still setting things up, and he has like a voice, and then he sees a little girl like running into the woods, and the little girl looks like she is dressed as a Raggedy Ann, which is what I had to look up. But as soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, I think I've seen that before. And his daughter also sees her, and it is like a little bit creepy, but honestly nothing too outwardly scary. I also believe it's set in 1984 by the back cover, but I didn't really feel that exactly from the first chapter, so we must be getting, you know, more of that coming into it. I do like the vibe. It is pretty well written. Yeah, Haunted Woods, attraction in the forest behind the house they're about about to lose. So that's why they're doing it for the final time. Ah, okay, right. Ooh, that is really scary. Oh my god. There are apparently 4 children who don't belong in this neighborhood who are going door to door asking people to protect them from the cunning man. So that must be what the young girl from the first chapter is, because apparently they're dressed in like vintage costumes, and the Raggedy Ann costume is a vintage costume. I haven't seen a kid in a Raggedy Ann costume in years. So yeah, it seems like these children are asking for protection from the cunning man. That didn't happen in the first chapter. She just like ran away. You didn't really get a good look at her. It was a little bit subtle, as I said. But again, like, I'm so intrigued. I want to read on. So it's coming in now 5th on my ranking. This stack is going to get so much more heavier the more I read. I don't think I'll be able to hold all of them up anymore. But I'm really liking this stack. And you know what? I'm starting to feel like maybe I might do a vlog reading, and again, like, Kayla's already done something like this. Maybe in my next Slice of Life vlog, I might read the books that come top of this ranking. One of the reasons why the book of the most precious substance is quite high on my TBR is because it's by Sarah Gran, and I love Come Closer by Sarah Gran. So I've been wanting to read this for a long time. I just haven't fitted in with anything. I mean, I'm kind of sad because the first chapter was intriguing, but it was only like 4 pages and it didn't really quite hook me. But I think the overall premise of this, I think somebody might be pulling my leg at this point. I think the book of the most precious substance, the book that the main character Lily has to find, I think you have to like spunk on it in order to like reveal its secrets. I'm pretty sure someone told me that once. And like, there's not a single thing about that in the synopsis, just that it is the most powerful occult book ever written, and Lily is being paid a fortune to track it down since she is a rare book dealer. And literally the very first chapter of 4 pages is someone coming to Lily telling her about a book called The Precious Substance, and that they're willing to give her, I think it was like 33% of any kind of profit he makes from it. And that is literally it. That's all it was from the first chapter. It's gonna be 7th out of 9 so far on my intrigue ranking. The only reason why it's above You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight is because I do kind of like the just straightforwardness of the first chapter of the Book of the Most Precious Substance. How we are just like literally getting straight into the story, and I really do appreciate that. But I don't think it was as intriguing as Till Death Do Us Part, unfortunately. But I will find somewhere to fit it on my TBR, because I need to find out if somebody was just pulling my leg on what the actual book is. Maybe I can just do like some kind of vlog where I read books from authors I've read from and loved before. There we go, there's a vlog idea, yay! This was actually a pretty good start to a fantasy book. I was a little bit unsure to begin with. There was a 2-page prologue and then a like 10-page first chapter. Hello, Tobu. You want to hear me talk about the Hurricane Wars? Oh, you're so cute. Can I pick you up? Yes, I can pick you up. Oh, you're so beautiful. I just love you. Oh. Okay, I've finished talking about the Hurricane Wars, and then we can play, okay? Okay. I love you. We follow Taliesin, who is at this wedding party, and during this wedding party, the like war drums or like this war sound goes out, and the wedding guests and Taliesin has to leave the wedding in order to like fight, and it is the Night Empire that is coming to attack. Taliesin, he has this magic that I don't think people are supposed to know about, because I think it damaged his family. I don't think it was his magic exactly, but it's the same like magic that slew his grandfather, turned his father into a monster, and ignited the decade-long Hurricane Wars. But it's like, we have to keep this magic hush-hush, because nobody wants to know about it. And that does pique my interest. It does. But I think it's harder for fantasy for me to get hooked straight away, because there is a whole world to build, a whole system to build, and there was a lot of backstory in the first chapter, and it was intriguing to have the dichotomy between a wedding and the start of a battle happen in the first chapter. Like, that was very exciting. But I don't think enough to really make me wholly interested to pick it up straight away, if you know what I mean. Also, I love the fact that my mind wandered a little bit, and I was thinking about Murphy and Napier, because we're arranging some reading sprints soon, and I was just thinking about, you know, that, And then I read the word undulate. And undulate is like Murphy's least favourite word ever. So I just thought it was funny. I thought I would mention it. I was thinking about Murphy, and then on the page, I read her least favourite word. I find that funny. It is currently 9 out of 10 on the ranking. Look, I know the camera angles have been absolutely shit. I don't often film in my living room because I just want to chill in here. So camera angles, the lighting, very casual. But I think this might be my last one for tonight. So we'll go back to being a little bit more professional tomorrow with the last 10. Have I done 11 now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, this is number 11. So now I'm officially just over halfway through this little challenge. I don't know what the hell the first chapter of this was. I know this is a little bit of a strange one. One of the reasons why I picked it up was because it was said to be a little bit of a psychedelic experience reading this, a little bit like being on an acid trip. Apparently there's a crew of men going up a turbulent river through the rainforests of Guyana. Their expedition is plagued by tragedies and haunted by drowned ghosts, spectres of the crew themselves, inhabiting a shadowland between life and death. So apparently this is a really strange one. I think this was written in 1960, so it is a little bit of an older one. I did want a bit of a mix for this video, and I'm glad I did, but I genuinely can't tell you a single thing about what happened in this first chapter. It was a lot of, I mean, there were two guys, they were talking, there was mention of death, mentions of weird dreams. I don't know what else to say. Not really anything with the crew or anything happened in this, but it's already really weird. It is a short book too. It's only 136 pages. The guy he's talking to apparently has a dead eye. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit confused. It's gonna go bottom of my ranking. It will be 11th, just based on the first chapter alone. But there is a strange part of me that does want to continue reading this, because I do think beyond the first chapter, it will get a lot more, hopefully, cohesive. I mean, if it's still a bit of a psychedelic experience, sure, it won't make a whole lot of sense overall, but I hope the plot of the book really like kicks into play, and then hopefully I can follow it. I genuinely don't know what I'm saying. Like, I'm tired. This was the weirdest book I read today. Yeah. Good morning! I finished the first chapter of A Fate Inked in Blood. Not one of my favourite first chapters, honestly, but I really do love the sound of this book. So this is like Vikings, but I think in Norway. And we have Freya, and she is in a marriage that she doesn't want to be in. And her husband ends up betraying her, and she has to do like this fight to the death with someone, and she finds out she has like a drop of goddess blood or something, and she has like magic. I don't know the full ins and outs of it, and there isn't really a whole lot to go off from the first chapter. It's mainly just about Freya resenting her husband, and her husband is extremely misogynistic, is awful, an absolutely terrible human being, and it was a little bit uncomfortable to read at times too. So, I mean, not exactly a captivating first chapter when it's really just, you know, a lot of resentment between two people who are married. And then in the same chapter, she ends up flirting with someone else who comes along, and this random man says that he's going to kill her husband. And it's just like, okay. It was a little bit random, but I am still really intrigued to read the rest of this because I've heard great things from some of my friends, and I love the cover so much. I also, because I think it is set in Norway, the fjords were mentioned, and I love the fjords. I can't wait to see the fjords. I'm going to Norway next year with Trova Trip. I still have spots on my trip if you want to check it out. I have a link down in the description box. If you want to join me in Norway and have the absolute best time ever in the fjords, going to these amazing Norwegian villages and cities and all of the things, I'm dying to go. So I might end up saving reading the rest of this one for when I go to Norway. Although I don't know how I'll cope because it's not until August 2025. But to be fair, the first chapter itself didn't really like hook me or anything, so it will be quite low. Let's see where it'll rank. It is currently 10th, so all the way down here. 10th out of 12 based on first chapter alone. I was starting to worry that maybe the fantasy books that I put on this TBR for this video wouldn't quite grasp me in the first chapter. Because I don't know why, but yeah, first fantasy chapters just don't really grab me all that well. But this one actually did. This one was pretty good. I mean, it was a prologue, so it's a little bit different. But we do follow Kissing, and her family gets sacrificed to a fire god in the prologue. So you get to experience all of that, so it's quite harrowing, quite tragic. And that is mentioned in the summary, by the way, because that leads to Kissing becoming a Godkiller, and then she ends up coming across a god she cannot kill. That's the premise of the story. We didn't get any of the whole, like, she becomes a Godkiller thing in the prologue, but you do feel so bad for her. You feel awful that her family are like dying in front of her, and she manages to escape. Her dad helps her to escape, and it does subtly introduce the idea of gods like fire god, water god, stuff like that. So it was very good. I did really like that first chapter. Also, Alli from Hardback Order being aggressive in my comments when she realized I hadn't read this yet. Well, I still probably won't read it anytime soon. But I think in the minute I would put it, is that it there? I would put it 5th on my ranking. So top 5, not bad. I haven't read a Stephen King book in like 3 years, I want to say now, and I have been in the mood to pick another one up, and Salem's Lot is probably the one that I was the most interested in that I have on my TBR. But I think this might have something to do with vampires and an author who goes back to Salem's Lot, which is actually called Jerusalem's Lot, and he wants to do some writing there, and his childhood is tied to that place, and strange things happen in this town. So like you don't really get a whole lot from, well, it's more prologue, and the prologue is divided into little like sub-chapters, and there's a lot of talk about Jerusalem's Lot, a lot of things that might seem a little bit weird, like residents leave Jerusalem's Lot and they don't ever want to talk about the place, so they call them like undisappearances, like people just leave and they don't say that they're going, and they just don't want to talk about it when they do get found and stuff like that. And there is a boy who is having like nightmares and talking about Jerusalem's Lot, and there was a tall man, and that's all I got from the prologue, really. Stephen King is very wordy. I will give him that. He is very wordy. The first chapter doesn't really give you a whole lot to go off of. It seems not too unusual, but there's enough unusuality to it that there might be something else going on, but nothing is outwardly stated just yet. And yeah, nothing about vampires so far, absolutely nothing. But the whole idea of the town does intrigue me so much. I do love small towns that are a little bit haunted and a little bit scary. So I did like it. You know, I'm only going to pick up what is above it. So I want to say this is 7th so far on the ranking. I need to think of a better system. Okay, I think I got the fantasy that didn't have the best opening chapters earlier, and now it seems like each one I'm reading, Godkiller, this one, the first chapters have actually been like really good. This one follows Demi, and her mother, they have magic, and this is in a world where magic is kind of outlawed. There was a lot of people who died for having magic, so Demi and her mother are kind of outcast, but people go to them to get healed. And in the very first chapter there's a young boy who has been poisoned, and he is called Jonas, and his mum, she treats Demi and her mum like really awfully. There's a lot of prejudice at play here, and she still needs to rely on them to heal her son. And I love the kind of like magic system in this, because even though they're healers, it takes like 3 days for them to kind of recover from healing someone. So I kind of like the fact that there are consequences to their magic and to the healing powers, because I don't think I've read anything where the healing actually had consequences. Usually people just heal other people and everything's fine. But no, this one actually has consequences, and I really like that. I really do like the initial friendship between Jonas and Demi. They seem to get on like very well, and Jonas seems like very considerate and very grateful as well to have been healed. And Demi promises that she will help his mother at the end of the first chapter, because his mother had been hurt by magic people in the past, and so like there's a lot of distrust there, and she needs healed. And so Demi's going to ask her mum if they can heal his mum. So I'm very intrigued to see where it will go. Very well written. I really did enjoy it. So far, number 6 on my ranking. I think it just goes under Godkiller right now, because the first chapter of Godkiller was very short, very punchy, very exciting. I mean, I've been a little bit disappointed with some of the Evernight book selections. So this is a book I got from Evernight. It's a horror subscription box that I think is an extension of Illumicrate. And I've read a couple of them now, and they have been very underwhelming. They're not exactly what I would call horror, per se. And I don't really have much faith in this one, to be honest. The first chapter was intriguing enough. So apparently the city is sinking. Great. There is a doctor called Tamsin. I think she might be put on like trying to figure out what's happening. According to the synopsis, her basement is sinking faster than the city, and she finds a door that doesn't belong, so she opens it, and inside this door is a doppelganger who is a lot more nastier than she is. None of that happened in the first chapter. Really just the first chapter was that Tamsin wants to be famous for her research one day, and we find out that the city is sinking. So I mean, intriguing enough, I guess. The story could be good, but I don't know how it will fit in the scope of horror exactly. And I do know that horror comes in all shapes and sizes. I don't know, I kind of like that cover though. That's like a pretty good cover. And that's even freakier. Oh my god. It is a beautiful book. I like the book itself, but it'll probably be quite low on my ranking. So I put it under the Hurricane Wars and above A Fating to Blood. So it's currently 13th. 13 out of 16. Okay, I can see why a good few of my friends really enjoy this book. Oh wait, hang on, there was like, I think one person I watched didn't like it recently. Who was it again? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to go back through my watch list. But I think the majority of my friends enjoy this one, and I can see why. I mean, even just based off the first chapter, I really liked the first chapter a lot. So there's a serial killer called the Orb Weaver, although her real name is Sloane. The Orb Weaver is her serial killer name, and I don't think it's a very good name, to be honest. Rowan, who she ends up meeting, who is a fellow serial killer, is like, oh, that's such a great name. And I'm like, is it though? Is it? But I love the fact that we start off this book, the first chapter, with Sloane trapped in a cage, and she's killed the person who's put her in there, and he's dead outside of the cage. And then Rowan, another serial killer, like comes in, he's like, oh, hello. It's like such a weird random encounter, and it seems like the romance might be between them, I think, and they stalk across the country. Two hunters collide in an annual game of blood and suffering. So it doesn't sound like it's for the faint of heart, and in fact there was a little bit of body horror in that very first chapter alone. It starts off pretty gruesomely, just absolutely engrossing, a little bit sickening as well, but that's what I signed up for. So it's going to be 4th right now, and I'm thinking, how many books can I realistically read in the next Dice of Life vlog, where I'm reading the books that come top of this ranking? Like, do I read the top 4, the top 5, top 6? So like, what's going to be pushed out? What's going to stay in? I have 4 books left to read. Let's see if it changes. I don't think I've heard anyone talk about Ghost Girl Banana. I was immediately drawn in by the title of the book. I was with Allie actually when we went book shopping in London last year, and I got this from Dawn Books. The name was just like, oh, that sounds so good. The synopsis sounds great too. We got a little sliver of it in the first chapter. So we have Lily in London 1997, and about 30 years before, in 1966, her mum got like exiled from China. So the person exiled is Sukian, and her daughter, 30 years later, Lily, she gets a letter in the very first chapter. London 1997, love that sentence so much. It's like, that's the peak of the Spice Girls. The Spice Girls were mentioned in this, but that's what I'm getting in my head. Girl power, you know? But Lily, we start off this book with her watching a funeral procession for one of her neighbours, and she wishes that she had have known her neighbour a little bit better. But then yeah, she gets a letter, and it's about an inheritance. And she's like a little bit skeptical, like, an inheritance? That kind of sounds like a scam. And that's pretty much where we end the first chapter. Just judging from the synopsis as well, she does take a pilgrimage to Hong Kong to meet this like very powerful Chinese stranger. I have no idea what else happens. But I'm just like, why is it called Ghost Girl Banana? Why? And also it seems like the next chapter is set in 1966. So it follows Sukian. So it must go between mother and daughter from 1960s China to 1990s London until Lily goes on her pilgrimage to Hong Kong. I'm sold. I'm literally sold. And it was a very captivating first chapter. It was like very subtle. It was pretty good to have that like funeral procession going on in the background. And yeah, consider my intrigue really peaked. But now I'm like, oh god damn it, now where do I put it? It's gotten to the point where it's like really hard. Hi Ash, I love you. Okay, after this update we'll play. They woke me up at like 7:30 this morning. My alarm was for 9:30 and they wouldn't let me go back to sleep. I didn't go to sleep until like 3. I'm so tired. Who knew parenthood would be so hard? Don't know if it's going to be controversial or not. I think I'm actually going to put it 4th. Because I'm like, who is this stranger? Why did they have an inheritance? Her mum got exiled from China. Why did you get exiled from China? What happened? What's going on? So it definitely captured my imagination and desperate to read more. Okay, intriguing chapter. I don't know if I'm going to like the main character. I feel like from the first chapter, I don't know if I jive with him. He's called Ganymedes, and he is a bit of a trickster, and it seems like there is like chaos in his wake. We start off at like this festival, and they're playing like festival games, they're playing with other kids, and he like manages to destroy his stall. People call him Pissfish, the kids laugh at him. It's just, I don't know, it seems a little bit too silly for my liking. However, I really do like the story that each kid is like blessed or something. Like Ganymedes is supposed to be blessed, and every single parent they're blessed gets passed down, and Ganymedes hasn't gotten the blessed from his dad. Even though his dad is there, he's supposed to get it, but you get it naturally. I don't really fully understand it. It isn't really fully explained. But all of the blessed do have to go on this 12-day adventure to this mountain. And even though Ganymedes isn't actually blessed, him and his dad are keeping that a secret to protect the province for whatever reason. I don't think I'm like intrigued enough really to find out why. I do like adventure stories set on the ocean, so Voyage of the Damned sounds like it could be right up my street, but just judging based off the first chapter, not really my cup of tea, and I think it is the character who kind of put me off. Yeah, just the whole sequence of events in the first half of this, it just felt like a sitcom. You know, it just felt like some kind of silly sitcom on Disney Channel. And as much as I love sitcoms on Disney Channel, it just didn't really feel like it belongs in a story like this. However, I will say, I love the illustration of the map there. That is beautiful. But also the ship too. Oof. So I'm absolutely sure it does get better. It's probably going to go a bit low on the ranking. I haven't figured it out yet. It is debuting on the Billboard Hot 100 at number 13. Just under the Book of Most Precious Substance and above You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight. I think that sounds about right. So this is my first time trying Danmai, and it is a proper novel. It is words, lots of words. Danmai is Chinese literature that features relationships between men, so it is gay, and I love that. But nothing like that happens really in the first chapter. Essentially, the very short chapter, it's only about 4 pages. A guy did something, and he's now dead, and his death is being celebrated. And I do know from the synopsis that this guy ends up getting resurrected years and years later, and he gets resurrected so he can exact revenge or something like that. I really don't know a whole lot about this, but it was my first time like trying Danmai, and you know what? It was good. It was very good. I think just maybe a little bit too short for me to place it very high in this ranking. I've heard great things about Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, and I believe it has like inspired a film or a TV show or something like that. So I do want to read this at some point, but I think just judging off that first chapter alone, really nothing happened. It really was just a couple of people talking. Yeah, talking and being happy that someone is dead. So right now it's like 16 out of 20. It is quite low down. It's in like the bottom 5 at the minute. I have one more book to go, which is another Danmai, and I'm hoping it opens up a little bit better. I have every faith that it will. I just feel bad because I have nothing really to say about that first chapter. And when you read a first chapter, it's like quite unspectacular. There's like a little sliver of something that you're kind of interested in, but there's not really too much to go on. Yeah, it's a little bit like that. It's like I kind of licked the starter and the main course is like still in the kitchen. Okay, yeah, I think I much prefer the opening of this one than I do the previous Danmai book I read. And this was a prologue, and it was a lot longer than the Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. But it really came across as like very fairy tale-like. We're being told this story about a crown prince who becomes the god-pleasing warrior, and he wants to protect and help the common people. And so he does like different things. But it comes across as so fairy tale-esque because of how much time is like spanning this chapter alone. We see him saving a child, we see him fighting a ghost, we see him ascend to the heavens, but then he gets like cast out because he goes against the wishes of the other gods. And so it's unheard of anyone ascending to the heavens again. However, he does, but he gets kicked out again. Like, he's there for like a minute and then he gets kicked out again. And then we end the chapter with someone saying he's fucking done it again. He's ascended. So he's like ascended for a 3rd time. So it ended really humorously. but it did come across as so fairy tale-esque, and that's why I really enjoyed this one. It was like I was being told a story that had happened years before. It had the feel of maybe some kind of like Greek mythology woven into something like a Hans Christian Andersen tale or something. And apparently the synopsis of the book is this crown prince, after like 800 years or something, goes to the mortal realm and he has to do loads of different things in order to please the gods again. Along his travels he meets the fascinating and brilliant San Lang, a young man with whom he feels an instant connection. See, I haven't even gotten to any of the gay stuff, so I just know that when I do, I'll freaking love it. So for me personally, Heaven Official's Blessing comes 7th, which is so much higher than the previous Dan Mai book that I read. Can you even see it? I don't even think you can see it. Oh my god. So this is the stack. I can't pick it up. I can't do it. I fear for my life. But this is the final ranking of the first chapters. And remember, these are the first chapters alone. This isn't me ranking the books as a whole. So something all the way down here could actually be up here when I've read the full thing. So the final ranking of the first chapters. At number 1, Ascension. Number 2, The List of Suspicious Things. Number 3, Where Satan Girls Lie. Number 4, Ghost Girl Banana. Number 5, Butcher and Blackbird. Number 6, Our Wives Under the Sea. Number 7, Heaven Official's Blessing. Number 8, Godkiller. Number 9, Forged by Blood. Number 10, All Hallows. And there's my top 10 right there. Number 11, Salem's Lot. Number 12, Till Death Do Us Part. Number 13, The Book of the Most Precious Substance. Number 14, Voyage of the Damned. Number 15, You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight. Number 16, The Hurricane Wars. Number 17, Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. Number 18, Last to Leave the Room. Number 19, A Fate Inked in Blood. Number 20, The Warm Hands of Ghosts. And right at the bottom there, don't know if you can see it, is Palace of the Peacock at number 21. So that was fun, and I think I might, in my next Slice of Life video, do a reading vlog for my top 5. Maybe top 6 at a push. Hopefully coming sometime in April or May. But that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to leave this video a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave all your thoughts down below. Let me know what you thought of the video. Let me know if you've read any of these books and if there's any I should prioritize. I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons and my One Piece channel members for supporting my channel. If you'd like to join my Patreon or my One Piece channel membership, then all the links are down in the description box. But yeah, I hope I will see you in the next video. Bye.